Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's start. Oops. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining today's steering committee. It's our third steering committee. We've had 4 executive chefs in the past. They were all self-ops. And today from Queen's University, we do have Colin Johnson, who's the campus executive chef, and he's with Aramark. So it's the first one where we have a contract food service chef. And we have Kim Gascoigne, who is the marketing coordinator at Queen's Hospitality Services. We also have the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine with us today, Allison Lenthall and Dustin Harder, and they will speak about universal meals. So we're looking forward to that. So we all know that climate change, environmental destruction is accelerating. This year, I think, was the first year that in Canada, we felt how bad the effects of climate change were. We had record-breaking temperatures, especially out west, where it was almost 50 degrees. We had droughts throughout the country, even here in Montreal, the month of August, virtually no rain at all. We've had unprecedented wildfires. 1 billion sea creatures were cooked to death on the shores of British Columbia this year. And there are about 10,000 acres of the Amazon that are being destroyed every day. So the Amazon, which used to be a carbon sink, has now become a carbon emitter. So as announced by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres around August the 9th, we are in a code red situation for humanity. And we are at literally immediate risk. The climate tipping points could push us past the point of no return, which is plus 2 degrees since the pre-industrialized era. And we're now running at about 1.1, 1.2. So we are dangerously close. And if we do reach that point, it's irreversible changes. And if cattle, just a little statistic here, if cattle were to form their own nation, they would rank 3rd behind China and the US in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So that's how severe it is. We've maybe seen this in the past. We know that there's about 29% of the planet that's land and 71% of that land is habitable. And of that, 50% is dedicated to agriculture. Now, this is a 2019 statistic. So we are likely more because the forests have been declining since. And of that agricultural land, 77% is dedicated to livestock and livestock feed. That provides 18% only of the global calories and only 37% of the global protein supply. So you can see how inefficient animal agriculture is. And we've all seen this before. The highest producers of greenhouse gases are the ruminants, which are beef and lamb. And you can see how different the plant protein emissions are. So that's why we want to move from animal protein down to plant protein. Okay, let's continue. Okay, just an example here, words versus action. So McDonald's says that they are incredibly serious about climate responsibility, yet a Big Mac is equivalent to driving a car for nearly 8 miles, each Big Mac, versus the University of Cambridge, who realized that beef and lamb, being ruminants, had the greatest greenhouse gas emissions, and they removed them totally from the university. This is university, it's not Cambridge campuses. So there's campuses out there that may be serving beef and lamb. And they were able to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 1/3. These are just some quick good news stories. The new New York City Mayor, Eric Adams, is vegan and he wants to convert everyone to plant-based foods. The city of Vancouver last week passed a motion to shift 20% of their animal-based purchasing to plant-based purchasing. And there's many others. Amsterdam wants its citizens to be 50% plant-based. Berkeley became the first US city to commit to going vegan, 50% for now, and then the remaining 50% after. And also wanted to note that UBC introduced the first ever climate-friendly food label. So kudos to UBC. So these are some easy changes. We've possibly seen them before. Place the plant-based food at the front of the line when you're serving, and then use the meat or dairy as add-ons to those dishes rather than including them in the main meal. Substitutions, especially condiments, milks, desserts, those are easy to substitute. Students won't know the difference. Change the labeling, make the labeling for plant-based foods much more mouth-watering. Don't use vegan or vegetarian. It turns a lot of people off, unfortunately. So the challenges are to accelerate the universities to meet the 60% KPI by the end of next year. And university management needs to press both university cafeterias themselves as well as the retail outlets to label foods, not only for the greenhouse gases, but also for deforestation, land degradation, etc. And obviously to significantly increase plant-based food. So what we need now is a collective accelerated transition to plant-based food. We can't just do it individually. It's going to take a lot of us for it to have an impact. And as I mentioned earlier, we're close to the tipping point. So it's an urgent action that we need to take. So with that, I will stop sharing and we'll bring in Queen's University, please.
All right. So first, thank you so much for inviting us to speak today. Today, Colin and I are going to talk about the partnership between Queen's Hospitality Services and our food service provider, Airmark. We were going to talk about our history of plant-based initiatives on campus, as well as where we are now and what we're doing to continually move forward in the direction of sustainability and plant-based offerings on campus. So our mission in hospitality services is to provide the highest quality, guest-centric food and experiences that nourish, connect, and meet the needs of our diverse community in a sustainable and financially responsible way. So I'm going to talk about our partnership between Queen's Hospitality Services and our food service provider, Airmark. So we are set up as a management fee agreement. That means that all revenues, cash, flex dollars, debit, room and board rates, catering, and conferences accrue to the university. As well, the direct costs associated with our food service operation are billed to us by Airmark. So with this fee service structure, it gives the university a bit more control over the operations than it does in a profit and loss account, where most of the decisions are made by the food service provider. So this means that all decisions on pricing and room and board rates, hours of operations, the nature of the meal plan and policies are made by the university. And with the assistance of our food service advisory committee and our meal plan advisory committee. So, like I said, all revenues and expenses are accrued to us, and then we pay Airmark a management fee for their services. But Airmark does employ all of the management and employees in hospitality, and they operate 20+ retail locations on campus, 3 all-you-care-to-eat dining halls, our Donald Gordon Hotel and Conference Center, and the catering and event services. That's just a little bit about how we're set up here. So one avenue that we've taken to ensure that we're moving forward in our commitment to sustainability is through different key performance indicators that were part of the food service RFP back in 2019. So the KPIs outline the minimum criteria that the successful food service contractor would need to meet to stay in good standing with our contract. So one of the KPIs that we set out was local food sourcing. So local sourcing for us means food that is grown and or produced and or manufactured within the following 3 tiers. So tier 1, we have this hyper local, that's within 100 kilometers of Queens. Tier 2 is within 500 kilometers of campus and located in Canada. We're in Kingston, Ontario, which is very close to the border of the US. So this stipulates that purchasing needs to be done in Canada, and also that it's not just food purchased from a distributor, but is grown, produced, and or manufactured within that area. And lastly, that the food is sourced within Canada. So those are our definitions of local food sourcing that were used in creating our specific targets. So these are specific minimum targets for local purchasing in the tiers that we outlined in our contract. So for tier 1, it was increasing by 1 local producer within 100 kilometers every year for the term of the agreement. For tier 2, it was a 30% spend within 500 kilometers for the period of January 2021 to April 30th, 2021, and then grow by 1% per year. Again, that's a minimum for the contract. And lastly, 2/3 spend from sources within Canada. And now I'm going to pass it over to Colin to talk about where we were and where we are with our plant-based menus and offerings.
Thanks, Kim. So some of the challenges and successes that we had over the past 20 years. So we opened a vegan station in our largest dining hall, Leonard Hall, in 2003. We had the station operational for 13 years. We weren't getting the participation to that station that we really wanted to, but we were continuing with it and making some strides. But then we had to focus on allergies and accommodating some allergies on campus. So unfortunately, that station became our allergy station in 2016. And I think part of that problem was I think maybe we were ahead of the curve a little bit. It would be nice to have that opportunity to have that station running now. In 2018, before opening Rustic Roots, which is now our plant-based platform, our chef and sous chefs underwent forward food training. We were the second campus in Canada to do the training, and the first in Ontario. Our chef spent 2 fun-filled days with Chef Wanda, who a lot of you know, and learned new techniques and really got the culinary team thinking about plant-based offerings. So that was great, and looking at doing another refresher session and for some new employees on site. That same semester, a few of our employees also participated in the Vegan Pledge, which was a Queen student initiative to go plant-based for a month. So a few of the folks did that, and they really, it was an eye-opening experience for them, and they found out why some students were struggling and what we could do to help them in that respect. So, you know, living the life, so to speak. We opened Rustic Roots in Bannery Dining Hall, our second largest dining hall, in 2018. The station serves plant-based meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So much like our vegan station was previously, this has taken over that station. It offers plant-based for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We also have similar offerings at our other 2 dining halls. Not the same setup as a platform, but the same offerings. Although we have seen some movement towards plant-based eating, we wanted to share some of the challenges we've seen and some of the steps that we're doing to move forward. We also had Meatless Mondays, thinking that would be a great initiative. Unfortunately, we had it at Leonard Hall, and on Mondays we saw our counts drop at Leonard Hall because they were going to other dining halls. So we stopped that and just tried to infuse plant-based offerings throughout the dining halls instead. This slide shows, you know, oops, sorry, go back one, Kim. Just if you can see the marketing, you know, plant forward food, good for you. Or tried, Kim, that was really, this was her initiative. She was doing some great signage and some online presence with, you know, trying to make it fun and not calling it vegan. And we did see some success with that. Okay, next slide. So this year we collected a new stat for incoming students. It was voluntary, and we were asking them to identify vegan, vegetarian, and then some other special diets information along with that. So the 4,300 students back in residence this year, we saw 40 identify as vegan and 192 identify as vegetarian. So we're keeping track of the portions served from each station and seeing just over 14% of the students are going for the plant-based options in the dining halls. So this percentage tells me, even though it's fairly low, is that it's much higher than the 40 identifying as vegan. So I think there's room for growth, obviously, but we're making some headway. Just some quick stats of vegan offerings off that station. So Leonard Hall, which is our largest dining hall, serves for a meal period roughly 165 vegan entrees off that station, where Ban Reed is 125 and Jean Royce, our small hall, does 60. And the next slide. So as Kim mentioned, we deal with a local produce supplier called Diodatos, and we support many of the local farms in the surrounding area in Ontario and Quebec. There are some limitations to that because our school year doesn't correspond to the growing season, except for a little bit in the fall. That being said, we do buy a lot of root vegetables and other things off these farms and some microgreens and things like that. So working that's 22 that we have for sure, but with Diodato, they may buy off another farm here and there, so that number may go up or down slightly. Next slide. So where are we now in catering? This is an interesting topic. We're seeing quite a few requests for plant-based menus. So typically we have some standard menus on our catering menu, but they typically, as in most catering, they want a custom menu. So Tony, the catering chef, and myself will develop a menu with partnership with the client and come up with different menus for them. So we're seeing an increase in that. Last year and a half, catering's been pretty much non-existent, so we're looking forward to getting back into that in the next few weeks and months. Where are we now in dining? So that's Chef Drew in the picture. So we did a menu analysis from corporate office helped us do this, and they came up with 33% vegan and 49% of our menu is vegetarian. Now this isn't including, salad bars weren't included in that, so we're just talking about entrees and soups and things like that. 43% of the plant-based menus, 43% were plant-based. So yeah, so you had 33% vegan, 49% vegetarian, and then the 43% were plant-based, because there's some differentiating factors in that. We have dairy alternatives available in all locations, and minimally one vegan soup per day, sometimes two. And I think, Kim, you're up next.
Yep, back to me. Great. So continuing with where we are now, with the success of our Airmark, our new food service provider, this gave us an opportunity to open a new location on campus, something that was new and fresh. So we had a flexitarian location proposed as a destination on campus. That was something different than your traditional locations that you usually see. So this was a concept where it was the concept and the recipes were designed for Queen's University, leading with a blended beef mushroom burger, bean patties, and build your own salads. So the imagery in this location is geared towards flexitarianism and nudges students to make a choice towards a blended burger or a plant-based option. So currently looking at the stats this semester for this location, we do see that the beef is leading, but it's interesting to note that the bean patty is number 2, which is followed by chicken and our blended patty. And that's also the same for our build your own burger at that location. The beef is leading, but it's also followed by the bean burger and then chicken and the blended. So it's nice to see that our plant-based option there is number 2. So we try to use our platforms to promote plant-based and sustainable options as much as possible. In this example is our new mobile app. It's an app that allows students to order meals and beverages ahead of time and schedule their pickup time, which makes it convenient for them to grab food between classes. So as you can see from the screenshots that I grabbed here from our app, we try and put the plant-based or sustainable options at the top. So that's the first thing that our customers see. And that includes modifiers and sides that come with those dishes. So it's always the salads at the top or the milk alternatives at the top. And to help us monitor the KPIs of the contract, the Queen's team and executives perform random audits for each of our dining halls and retail locations several times a semester to ensure that they're meeting that specific KPI criteria. Now, these audits are very long. There's a lot in them to deal with allergies and signage and taking food temperatures and how products are stored, things like that. But I did want to put in some of the examples of what we are monitoring on the plant-based side and scoring each location on to ensure that they always have these offerings. So this is the first semester that we are doing that. We didn't do it last year because of COVID. So these audits will be reviewed with the contractor at the end of the semester to see where they are with the targets that we've outlined in the KPIs. So now I'm going to pass it back over to Colin.
So where are we going? So what we've learned is really need to listen to our customers. Increasing plant-based menu items in dining, and you really have to know what they're looking for. So we've made some mistakes, and we've tried to fix them with what they're saying. So grill and stir fry now always have a plant-based offering along with, you know, the meat offering, and sometimes it's just a plant-based offering. We're also trying to be more inventive with our plant-based offerings. So we're doing, you know, the burger crumbles, marinated beans, lentils, edamame, and not doing the default tofu for everything. You know, if you're eating plant-based, you don't want to eat tofu all the time. But if we are using tofu, we're doing different things with it. We're marinating it, we're baking it, we're grilling it, trying to do some different textures with it, right? We also have vegan pasta on the pasta station, you know, 3 to 4 times per week. Build your own subs, again, with plant-based options. Salad stations always have more plant-based options, lots of beans, lentils, legumes. The burger crumbles seem to be very popular with the students, so we have that on there too. Also looking forward to doing a forward food refresher, so we're trying to organize that for the spring. Some work to be done on that yet, but that's our plan right now. And yeah, we've had this year a lot of feedback from plant-based vegans and vegetarians. So again, really listening to your customer and trying to come up with exciting menu ideas for them, and that other students will want to enjoy too, so that we get more plant-based participation. So final thoughts. It's a delicate balance to offer what your customers want and to drive change. You're seeing that plant-based preferences are increasing in popularity, but it's not the dominant percentage here yet. So the delicate balance in our dining halls is to prepare dishes that are palatable to all students, but be mindful of food waste. Making our plant-based items delicious as possible to encourage other students to try them. Moving the stigma that plant-based choices are not good. So again, we're not labeling things vegan, trying to use the plant-based as much as possible. And finally, education, promoting the benefits of local source plants, as well as the sustainability aspect of eating less meat. We know that sustainability is very important to our students, so promoting this angle definitely resonates with them. And I think we've started that, but there's room for us to grow in that respect too. That concludes our presentation, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin, and thank you, Kim. Quite impressed with that. I like that idea that the plant-based ones come up first in terms of the ordering, and I'm not sure if it was the same as with the placements. Maybe Kim, could you just stop sharing your screen, please, so we could see the audience? Yeah, thank you. And sorry, if you have questions, we won't have time to answer them because we've got to move to the next, but if you could just put them in the chat and we'll get back to you. But really, Colin and Kim, I'm quite impressed. That's very good. I think, we need more education for the students so that they understand what the impact is of the food that they're eating. And I'm not sure many universities have that. So that would be sort of one comment that I have. And of course, the food labeling, that's going to make it a lot more evident as to what they're purchasing. So it is 4:30 and we do have at least another 25 minute presentation coming up, but I may follow up with you, Colin and Kim, on some of the ideas that you presented here, because I will be writing to the presidents just the beginning of next week, and I'd like to maybe highlight some of the factors, or if you wouldn't mind also perhaps sending me your presentation, if that would be okay.
Yeah,
if
sure.
Not, don't worry. Okay, well, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. So Allison and Dustin, it's yourselves on now, please. If you could maybe share your screen.
Sure. Thanks so much, Eleanor.
Welcome.
There we go. So thank you again for allowing us to be with you today. I am Allison Lenthall. I'm the corporate liaison with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And I have with me today Dustin Harder, who is our culinary specialist, a cookbook author, accomplished chef. And we're here to share one of our meal concepts, universal meals. And if you're not familiar with PCRM, just very briefly, we're a 35-year-old nonprofit headquartered in Washington, D.C. And we promote the use of 100% plant-based diets, vegan diets, for good health. So that's who we are in a very small nutshell. So today I'm going to share with you about universal meals. And universal meals is a meal concept that Dr. Neil Barnard, our president, created when really looking at different institutions, universities, colleges, and other institutions. We know that everyone is fulfilling needs. You are fulfilling the needs of vegan and vegetarians, different religious traditions and the different nutritional guidelines that people need to follow, as well as common allergens. But we are looking at perhaps there's another way. There's another way to do this all together. So as we promote the use of plant-based diets for health, as well as for sustainability and the environmental impact, we also were looking at things such as diversity and inclusion. This is a way, universal meals is a way to create a dish that is delicious, healthy, beautiful, meets all the needs of all these people. And the diner doesn't have to explain themselves. By giving options, they don't have to say why they're choosing that option, but everyone can find something delicious and that fits their needs in one location and in one dish, essentially. So the universal meals boils down to guidelines. Okay, so the guidelines are very simple. And when you start with what to avoid first, you're looking at avoiding any animal products, any gluten-containing grains. For us down in the United States, it's the top 8 allergens. Actually, recently it just became the top 9 allergens, but I know that that's different, geographically, and alcohol. And what that leaves you with is lots of wonderful ingredients to create delicious meals. Dustin's going to share with us later about how he does some combining and some recipe creation to create universal meals. And this is something that we want to share with everyone. There's absolutely no cost to our resources. We just want to give it away and just really encourage people to be creative and inventive and look at dining in a new way from this perspective. So this is how it works. We actually have a portal that after this, I will share the link. Anyone can go on. We have recipes in both small scale and large scale recipes. We have different promotional materials that you can use, and we can create whatever it is that you might need. We have tabletops, table tents, we have social media posts, etc., and graphics. We can also do a menu consult. And really it is about giving options. You can choose one of our recipes to serve. You can choose one of our recipes and change it to fit your students' needs. Or you can even create your own or look at your own recipes and say, how can I, slightly tweak this recipe and create it as a universal meal. And this really allows your students, everyone, to feel included and satisfied. Sometimes it can actually solve, it can be a solution. It can solve problems in dining halls. So for example, one of the universities we're working with, they had a very well-established kosher station. They'd had it for many years. It was large. The students, enjoyed the food that was available. But the halal station was rather new. It was smaller. It didn't have as many options. And they started to see a little bit of a rift, a little, tension between the different student groups. So by choosing universal meals, you're able to meet the nutritional guidelines of both of those groups and remove some of those labels. So we created for them a new emblem, I'm sure a new code symbol. Everyone has their own, but we have universal meals stamp, but through educating students what that means, they then can eliminate some of the other labels. So we're also saying that in certain situations, this can streamline operations. Instead of having the vegan meal, the nut-free meal, the halal meal, you could give different options within universal meals. You could have an Italian version of a universal meal, a Japanese inspired universal meal, etc. And this opens up a larger choice of options for people who perhaps in the past were more, limited. Although we do know, and I totally acknowledge that everything I've heard today, there are lots of options out there. So I'm not saying that you're limiting your students at all. We're looking at many different industries here. Right now, we're working with colleges and universities. Universal Meals has been piloted at the University of Miami. We also highlighted a universal meal at Notre Dame for National Vegan Awareness Day, and we're working with other universities as well. We all know this is a very challenging time. So we are here to support anybody who is interested, however that looks. And you can see that there are other institutions that we're speaking with as well, including correctional facilities and shelters. So this is an example. This is an example of some of the things that you would find on our portal. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see we have the recipes. So like I said, small batch as well as bulk size recipes. Bottom left is a graphic that anyone can use for social media or whatever that looks like. We have logos, we have flyers, table tents, and we can create. So I have a team of graphic designers that, if you want to do it differently, we can do that. Another one of the resources that we have to offer, and Dustin's going to tell us more about this, is an easy swap sheet. So this is a resource that chefs can use when perhaps you want to take it to a next step, plant-based, 100% plant-based and allergen-free. So I'll control this. Dustin, you can take the mic.
Sure. Thanks, Allison. Kim and Colin, thank you so much for everything in your presentation. It's so cool to see the progress. And some of this will be familiar and some of it might be new information. So we'll talk about swaps. And it's interesting to hear Chef Colin talk about the vegan station then being sort of removed to make room for allergies and stuff like that. So maybe this is helpful. First thing to look at is meat, poultry, fish, and shellfish. We think of heartier items there, usually tofu, seitan, tempeh. But in our world with allergies, we're looking at using lentils to swap things out, hearty. And you can do things like lentil sloppy joes or lentil bolognese with that. Jackfruit is a great one to use for tacos, enchiladas, tostadas, those sorts of things. And when we look at the lentil aspect too, we think of black beans and chickpeas, and you've done patties before, but we can do meatballs with those. And I do a really great lentil falafel that I love. So lots of options within that world to play with. A chickpea tuna sandwich, If you haven't had it yet, it's so easy to swap out the things you would normally put in a tuna sandwich and just put the chickpeas in instead of the tuna. And mushrooms, of course, mushrooms are amazing. A little jackfruit and mushrooms mixed together, sauteed with some barbecue sauce for a pulled jackfruit barbecue sandwich. The mushroom really helps that texture of the jackfruit because you're dealing with that mushy jackfruit sometimes. So that's a way to sort of put those two together and get a heartier texture from that as well. Eggs, when we're looking at that, baked goods, cakes, cookies, muffins, brownies, mashed banana you can use in place of eggs, applesauce you can use in place of eggs, another fruit puree that might go a little bit better with the baked good, chia seeds, flax seeds, and a lot of companies now are releasing egg replacers, literally simply called egg replacers, that are usually a mix of starches that you mix with some water and let it thicken up, and you can use just as you would use an egg. We're looking at butter and peanut oils and soybean oils. You can always swap those out with a neutral canola oil, vegetable oil, or something like that. But when we're also looking at maybe making a swap from oil in a baked good, we can look at using unsweetened applesauce for a little bit more of a health forward vibe in baked goods. Wheat and gluten-free flours. It's really awesome today to see products growing and growing and expanding. And there's a lot of companies that have been in the flour game forever that are now releasing one-to-one options that are really, really fantastic for gluten-free baking that you can easily swap into cakes, cookies, brownies, all of those things. So gluten-free flour has gotten better and better as the years have passed. As I'm sure you're aware, vegan products sort of just keep getting better and better as we go along here, or allergy-free ones for that matter. Milks, we're looking at the allergy side here. So oat milks that are certified gluten-free, hemp seed milks, flax milks, rice milks, all of those things can usually be used interchangeably. The oat milk is the one that still has a little bit more of a creamier and flavorful variety to it, as opposed to the seed milks. Those tend to be a little thinner. But it all depends on what you're using it in. Sometimes the hemp seed milk is exactly what will take the product home, you know? Creams and sauces, this is my favorite arena in the plant-based world because so many wonderful things can be done in terms of making a cream base these days, from using potatoes, rice, beans, Nature's Miracle cauliflower, which has just sort of exploded over the last few years. Cauliflower is a great base to steam and make a bechamel or an Alfredo sauce, with just changing out the spices a little bit. Butternut squash is a great one to do as a mac and cheese. And when we're looking at labels like vegan or plant-based, sometimes you can just take those words right out and you can say it's a butternut squash mac and cheese or a butternut squash mac, right? Still luscious and creamy and satiating, and usually everything that everybody still wants still. There's still a little bit of pasta in there. And speaking of pasta, there's gluten-free pastas these days. You can use a black bean pasta. There's the buckwheat soba noodles, which are gluten-free. You can make a delicious sort of chilled vegetable soba noodle bowl with a tamari dressing. Vegetable noodles. I love a fresh zucchini in the summer with a fresh pesto sauce and cherry tomatoes. So many options as you look at pasta, allergy-free options, gluten-free options, and then sauces to put with them as well. Cheeses. There's things like from Whole Foods, again, vegan products everywhere, but if you're going on a whole food basis, sunflower seeds or hemp seeds mixed with a little bit of nutritional yeast, pulsed up in a food processor or a Roboku with a little dash of salt, really hits home and takes the place of Parmesan cheese on any dish you want to sprinkle it on. I keep some and sprinkle it on everything. So that's really a great option in terms of a little texture to your food and something that people might be, it might be a little more familiar to people. And then peanut butter, big allergy, peanuts right there. So a great sub for that is sunflower butter. And I use it in sunflower cookies and even a sunflower butter and jelly, or a lot of vegan sauces. As I'm sure you've seen, the base through the years now has become cashews. A great thing to swap out and use for the cashews is actually just a little bit of sunflower butter or raw sunflower, so you can make a cream from scratch like you would with the cashews. But really, the options are endless. It's sort of a fun challenge when you start to look at ingredients differently, as I can see you've done by the menus that you offered up there. It's so impressive, and I love seeing the progress, but these are just a few ideas. Back to you, Allison.
Thanks, Dustin. So these are some additional examples of our universal meals. As Dustin was sharing, you can be creative and swap out as you choose, but we have the fruited quinoa here that can be served as a snack or breakfast or dessert. We have a roasted veggie enchilada with a green sauce, a mushroom ragu with polenta and garlicky greens, and our universal meal, fluffy golden waffles. So it is looking at how can we meet many different needs with many different beautiful options. Again, all of this is completely free of charge. I will even send, now we're not the same obviously as Forward Food, but I can send Dustin to you and you can have him for a week and he can support you in creating universal meals specifically for your students' needs. We are going to be hopefully adding a universal meal recipe, university recipes board, like a swap board, so that different universities can share their recipes as well, just so that we can promote and all work together to serve more 100% plant-based meals, and for all the reasons that we've been discussing. So thank you very much, Eleanor, and everyone. And we feel free to reach out with any requests or anything we can do to support you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Allison and Dustin. Very good, actually very appetizing. And what I like is, as you say, it could appeal to everyone, right? Because you don't have all the allergens and other ingredients that may not be appropriate for some groups. So that is really, really excellent.
Eleanor, as kind of administrator, maybe this would be a good time to do some polls, because we move so
yeah,
quickly
I think
through.
I'm not going to do the polls.
Okay.
Instead, yeah, I think what we'll do is it's 4:47. Maybe we can open it up to live questions for the next, let's say, 5 minutes or so. And then I just have another 2 or 3 slides for the end. And what I was thinking is, if we get the permission from the PCRM and Queens, maybe we could post this recording onto the website, Holly, and then people could just go back, and people who couldn't attend today necessarily could go back to it, because I think there were some really good ideas there. So anyway, we could talk after on that, but thank you. So let's see, does anybody have any questions? If you could maybe just raise the Zoom hand and we could take the questions live. Okay, Nital.
Hi, my video is off. Thanks very much, guys. Great presentation. This is all very exciting. I remember, Eleanor, at the start of this call, you mentioned that this is the first university there where there's a food service provider participating here. I'm just wondering how that works in terms of, maybe Allison and others can talk to how, if there's any differences in dealing with, and if there's been any tensions, and how you get food service providers on board. Is it easy? It's just a bit of a black box maybe to me and some others.
Sure. So I'll speak for our experience. Universal Meals, University of Miami is actually with Chartwell's, which is under the Compass umbrella. And because it is my understanding that there's a certain percentage of recipes, proprietary recipes that need to be used, but they do have some wiggle room. So they've been trying out Universal Meals as part of their chef specials, or their, the rotating different selections that they're offering. We're also working closely with the different food service providers to offer them universal meals to use free of charge. So we haven't felt any conflict. It has been easier for us and a little bit more flexibility when working with self-ops. But I think because we're not really selling anything, we're selling an idea and selling free resources. I think it's been widely appreciated.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Nital. Any other questions that we could ask live now?
Eleanor, there's a question from Sungwan in the chat, if you wanted to pick that up. Or
Do you
I
want
can
to
read-
just mention it?
I'll read it.
Yeah.
Says, Kim and Colin, thanks for your presentation. Have you tried reducing relative size portion of meat and increasing relative size plant-based ingredients for certain meals? It then goes on to say, if we can modify recipes and make sure that plant-heavy meals are enjoyable, this may be a great way of increasing consumption of plant-based foods.
Hi there, it's Colin here. So short answer to that is yes, we have tried that. We are doing that. We are doing a, well, Canadian Food Guide basically tells us to do that anyway, right? So small portion of meat and then a large portion of veg with a small portion of starch. So our plate model's kind of designed that way anyway. So yes, but very good point, and room for growth there for sure. But yeah, even items where there is meat in the dish, but we're adding legumes or beans to it too, to reduce the meat and increase the plant-based option. We're doing that as well.
Thank you so much, Colin. I mean, I kind of just wanted to raise this because I kind of read a few papers recently. And basically the authors were actually, providing quite, high quality, results as to basically, instead of trying to convince people that you should choose, say, plant-based alternative instead of meat-based alternative, right? Which is kind of not a very easy choice for lots of people who are omnivores, right? But in a way, try to increase the consumption of plant-based meat, plant-based food by basically surreptitiously increasing the portion of say plant-based ingredients, right? In typically high meat or medium to high meat, food, would actually provide a lot better results, at least in the short term.
Yeah,
so that's why I kind of wanted to.
I agree 100% with that. Like even something like a lentil bolognese for pasta, you can do it strictly with the lentils, or you can do it half and half, or you could do, and then with our burger too, it's 50% mushrooms with 50% beef too, right? So you try to do it that way as well. I think UBC is doing that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the most important thing is whether this new version is basically as satisfying, right, as the traditional high meat version. I think probably that's something that we'll have to do some empirical testing, right? So
yeah.
I think, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a follow-up.
Follow-up
question from Natal.
Yeah. So Natal, do you want to maybe just pose it yourself, please?
So is it the question that he was asking of Natal about industry response?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I was just typing a response. What I've seen is the major service providers are promoting plant-based options more and more. So for example, Sodexo has extensive offerings, and we do a lot of work in hospitals as well. And we're just seeing more and more plant-based offerings being promoted by the major food service companies. Hopefully that clarifies things for you, Natal.
So Natal, do you have any other questions on that? No? Okay, I guess that's no. Okay, well, we have about 5 minutes left. I just have something very short to finish up with. And let me just go to that. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make a brief sort of announcement in terms of where we're going. As you know, the situation is very critical with respect to the climate crisis. We cannot put off anything anymore. And there seems to be a world willingness to start making some changes as per that slide that I showed you. So what we're going to do as part of the organizing committee for the plant-based coalition is that we're going to start a Canadian COP26, we're calling it a Canadian Cities Challenge for 2022. And we want to encourage city halls and city services to transition to climate-friendly plant-based default meals by the end of 2022. We're aiming for these cities right now, but we can certainly increase them. We have formed little teams per city, but if there's anyone in the audience that would like to join, either for these cities or for other cities, so that we can achieve the goal of at least starting the cities to transition, that would be helpful. It's going to be a major challenge. So any additional volunteers to work on these would be appreciated. And secondly, the other campaign is we're starting the Canadian Education Campaign, both from a top-down and bottom-up approach. We're going to approach the ministries, and we're going to approach the schools. And this would be from primary all the way up to try to get the message into schools. I know it's hard, and there aren't many dedicated groups that do that, but that is the intention. So we'll see where we can take that, because we have to get into these institutions, right? We've got to make such a major change that we've got to go to the school system is, first of all, one of the best, right? Education is important, and especially in universities, to get the students to accept the fact that we need to go more plant-based. So this is just the final slide. The next steering committee will be either in April, May of next year. We'll start following up individually with the universities in Q1 next year to gauge the progress and measurements, because I'm still hoping to see how close we can get to that 60% KPI. I know measurements can be difficult and different amongst the universities, so we won't try to unify the measurements. We'll just do it based on whatever metric that you can provide. But I think it's important to get that progress out there, because that really is the whole intent here. And I'll be writing to the university presidents probably on Monday, as I do or did with the previous steering committees, to say what we did at this one, and again, to push for change at their university. I think the message from the dining teams over the last year has been that it really does start with leadership, and those universities who don't have support from the leadership will not get there. So we'll do our best to do that. And then, as I said, we will be launching these additional challenges that I spoke about. And again, I strongly request that we have a collective effort, because we are in a very, very bad situation. I know people just looking around their neighborhood, like when I talk to people in my neighborhood, they don't understand that. They don't think anything is wrong. Yes, it was hot this summer, but it's nothing. But it's really literally the tip of the iceberg compared to what's going to happen over the next few years as we approach that tipping point. So I want to thank everybody. We count on everybody, and don't give up, because the goal is really important. So thank you all. And unless there's anything else, I think we'll close. So
Thanks
thank you
much.
all. Thank you to our speakers. Really appreciate it. Very valuable information. So thank you, and
Thank
we'll
you
see
very
you at
much.
the next
Bye-bye.
steering committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.
Great
Thank
day.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.